All right, let's talk a little college basketball. It's officially March. The madness is upon us, and there's a lot to talk about. I want to start in the SEC. There was a revenge game for Tennessee with Kentucky coming to town, and clearly the Volunteers were foaming at the mouth to get Kentucky back for what the Wildcats did to them in Lexington, and they did. Now, Kentucky was without Reed Travis, which obviously makes a big difference defensively and on the glass. But that was a game that Tennessee needed to win. And I think they kind of needed to make a statement. After the Vols lost 2 of 3, Tennessee responded with a pretty good week. They won a tough, close game on the road at Ole Miss, which is a pretty darn good team, and then throttled Kentucky over the weekend. So, what does this game mean? It means Tennessee could still ultimately end up being a number 1 seed in the NCAA tournament, and they could ultimately make a run. I've told you, I like Tennessee. I don't love Tennessee as a team to get to the Final Four. Now, to be fair, experience does win in March. We've seen that. And this team is an older veteran type of basketball team. But also, three-point shooting and great guard play matters in March as well. And my question is, can Tennessee shoot it well enough from 3, make enough threes, and get consistent elite guard play? Can Lamont, Turner, and Bone and Bowden, can those guys make enough shots, make enough plays? That'll be what I'm watching for here for the next month for Tennessee. Now, Turner was fantastic against Kentucky, career-high 27 points. He was big time, and it was a big win. And there was no question that Kentucky was the tougher team in Lexington when these two teams met up. But Tennessee was the tougher team in Knoxville. They outscored Kentucky 28-10 in points in the paint. It was a big, big win for Tennessee. All right, let's switch to the Big Ten. And Michigan State loses to Indiana. And I want to start with the Spartans. And Tom Izzo had quite the post-game press conference after that game.
So sick of coaching the way I got to coach and practice the way I got to practice. Can't even read this thing. It's my eyes and stupid NCAA stuff. But guys, he hits 3 threes. He's hit 4 all year. What the hell are you going to do? Guard him? Probably.
And you can tell the injuries and adjusting on the fly is taking a toll on everyone. It just makes the Spartans' margin for error much, much smaller when they don't have Langford and they don't have Nick Ward. I told you guys last week that when you have a Hall of Fame level coach and a Player of the Year type of point guard that Cassius Winston is, you can win any game, anywhere, anytime. But with all that said, I do get concerned about Michigan State running out of gas here. They are really thin. There's no depth right now. They're not getting very much bench production. All 5 starters against Indiana on the road played 32 minutes or more. That is a ton. And it makes it hard to guard aggressively because you don't want to foul. Closing out games can be tough because of fatigue. And making shots can be tough because you got dead legs because you're dead tired. So it's certainly a concern. But as long as Michigan State has Cassius Winston, they're going to be tough to beat. But the heavy minutes from the starters is a very, very big thing to keep an eye on. Now to Indiana. What is the committee going to do with the Hoosiers? Now, this past week, the Hoosiers beat Wisconsin and beat Michigan State. Now, Indiana's 15-14, 6-12 in Big Ten play, which isn't good. But Indiana has 6 Quadrant 1 wins on the season. Only 13 schools have more than 6 Quadrant 1 wins on the season. And a lot of these teams are going to be top seeds. Let me just name a few of the teams that have more than 6 Quadrant 1 wins on the season. Virginia, Duke, Tennessee, Kentucky, North Carolina, Michigan, Kansas, Marquette, Wisconsin. Are any of those teams that I just listed, are they bubble teams? No. A lot of those teams are 1 seeds, 2 seeds, 3 seeds, 4 seeds. They're certainly not on the bubble. So when you pit Indiana's quality wins against other bubble teams, it's not even close. So I want to get into a big picture conversation with that because the Indiana situation is an interesting one. It's a situation that is almost applicable every single year this time of year. It's kind of the Arizona State, Oklahoma conversations from a year ago. Indiana is going to be in that same mold. The question is, do we want a below 500 power conference team who racked up some Quadrant 1 wins but lost a ton of games to get into the tournament? Or do we want to reward the mid-major, the little guy, for not losing? Now, I can see this whole discussion both ways. I mean, there's no question that it's harder to play in the Big Ten night in and night out than it is in Conference USA or the Mountain West or the Missouri Valley Conference or the Horizon League or the West Coast Conference. But at the same time, is a team like Indiana simply racking up Quadrant 1 wins because they're getting tons of opportunities to do so? Who's to say that Utah State wouldn't win a few of the games that Indiana has, or Murray State or South Dakota State wouldn't win a few of these games if, Indiana, or if Michigan State or Wisconsin had to come to their home floor? So the question is, do we want to reward winning a few big games but losing a ton, or maybe not having a bunch of quality wins but not losing either, with the understanding that a part of the reason why there aren't a bunch of quality wins, but there also aren't too many losses, is the same reason, the strength of the conference for those mid-majors. So when you get to the final teams on the bubble, every one of those teams has a reason to be left out of the NCAA tournament. So something I always want to pose is, okay, what's the strongest reason to include you into the NCAA tournament? And is that strong reason good Quadrant 1 wins? Or is that strong, good reason simply not losing? I guess this is food for thought, and you guys can do the dishes, but it is a very, very interesting situation that's applicable almost every single year this time of year. Well, so it is March, and conference tournaments are going to get rolling this week for some mid and low major conferences. So one bid leagues, automatic bids are going to be at state. And with kind of big picture philosophical things in mind with who gets into the NCAA tournament, keep in mind the conferences can choose to send the regular season conference champ to get that automatic bid to the NCAA tournament, or they can choose for it to be the conference tournament champ to get the automatic bid to the NCAA tournament. And I'm kind of torn on that philosophically, because I always want to be in the business and rewarding I want to be in the business of rewarding the right things. And I think if I ask you this question, what's harder to do? Win your regular season conference race where you're playing 18 plus games over the course of 2 months, you're playing on the road, you're playing a lot of teams twice, or going and winning 3 games in 3 days on a neutral floor? It's obviously way harder to win the regular season conference crown. So doesn't that kind of make you say, shouldn't we want to reward that? I can see it that way, but I'm torn, because the fan in me wants to see the conference tournament champ get that automatic bid, because there is nothing like the drama of a conference tournament of a one bid league. It's the best. It is absolutely fantastic. But the basketball player in me, the basketball lover in me, that guy wants to reward the right things. And I want to see the regular season champ get the automatic bid. Now, the beauty of March is no matter how awful your regular season went, you have the opportunity to wipe the slate clean, and you go to your conference tournament and you win 3 games in 3 days, or you win 4 games in 4 days in your conference tournament, and you are dancing in the NCAA tournament. And you don't want to lose that, because at the end of the day, that's the essence of March. But man, it's a cruel, cruel world to go win a regular season conference championship, lose in the conference tournament, and get left out of the NCAA tournament. Tough. It's a tough predicament there. All I know is the drama and the craziness will start this week with some of these conference tournaments. All right, with March officially here, we also got to think about the National Player of the Year race. And that conversation and situation is really interesting right now, because with Zion Williamson sitting out right now, and who knows what ultimately is going to happen with Zion and him returning, things get interesting with who's going to win the National Player of the Year. I mean, really the answer to the Player of the Year question really comes back to Zion Williamson. If he comes back and he plays in the NCAA tournament and in the ACC tournament, Zion Williamson's your National Player of the Year, case closed, no question about it. But if he doesn't, all of a sudden this thing gets opened wide open here. So there are a couple of guys that to me are just kind of on the outside looking in. PJ Washington of Kentucky, he's their leading scorer, 14.7 rebounds a game, over 50% from the field, over 40% from three. He's efficient. Kentucky's winning big. They could be a 1 seed. They could win the SEC. Kind of on the outside looking in. I love PJ Washington though. Ja Morant, the college basketball version of Russell Westbrook from Murray State. This dude's a stat stuffer. He leads the nation in assists at 10 assists per game. He also averages 24 points per game. He is a freak athlete, incredible finisher at the rim, and Murray State is winning as well. He's just on the outside looking in. There are 4 big candidates to me. The first one, Grant Williams of Tennessee. He's the driving force behind one of the best teams in America, a team that could win the SEC, 19 points per game, 7 rebounds a game. He is a grown man at 6'7", 235. I really like what he's done. There's Cassius Winston, point guard from Michigan State. The player that I trust the most in college basketball is Mr. Winston. 19 points a game, 7 dimes a game. He's had to carry an injury-riddled Spartan squad, and Michigan State could still win the Big Ten. And that's saying something because, to me, the ACC and the Big Ten are the 2 best conferences in college basketball. So Cassius Winston's right there. Then there is Marcus Howard of Marquette. He's the most electric scorer in college basketball. He's must-see TV. He's the college basketball version of Steph Curry. He's had 10 games of 30 points or more. 10. That's a ton. And Marquette could still win the Big East, and Marquette's winning big. But then the last guy, the guy to watch out for, R.J. Barrett of Duke. With his running mate out, and now that big Zion shadows kind of move for a little bit, this guy's been unbelievable and been on full display. 23 points per game, 7 rebounds per game, 4 assists per game. He could sneak in the back door with Zion out and win the National Player of the Year. So the Player of the Year race is going to be really, really interesting if Zion doesn't come back. But if Zion Williamson comes back, he's your National Player of the Year, case closed. And I want to finish talking about this. So one of the biggest stories of the weekend came in the Mountain West Conference with Utah State upsetting Nevada. Now, it was a huge win for Utah State in their pursuit of getting into the NCAA tournament. But the big story came after the game. Utah State's fans rushed the court, which led to some altercations verbally, physically, with the Nevada players and the fans. And that ultimately led to a viral video of Jordan Caroline in a fit of rage, yelling and screaming in the tunnel. He broke a glass fire extinguisher out of anger of what transpired with fans and how he was treated as they stormed the court. So, once again, the question gets brought up, should fans be allowed to storm the court? What should we do about rushing the floor? I hate to be Captain No Fun, but schools and conferences should do all they can to not allow fans to rush the floor, whether it's with massive fines, whether it's beefing up security, whatever. Don't allow fans on the floor. It's dangerous and it's not safe, period. And I have firsthand experience with this. My sophomore year at Kansas, January 22nd, 2004. We were 14-0 and ranked 2nd in the country. We played at Villanova. Villanova upset us. And of course, the Nova students and the fans rushed the floor. I was on the floor at the end of the game. I played it cool and didn't hightail it out of there, and I got caught in the middle of everything with the fans rushing the floor, and I was all of a sudden, in a split second, was engulfed by Villanova students. They're shoving me, they're pushing me. I'm not gonna lie, I was terrified. And it was Danny Manning, who was an assistant at the time at Kansas. He basically had to save me. He was tossing people left and right, grabbed me and pulled me out of the chaos. And I'm not gonna lie, I was a little shook up after that. And I'm just telling you firsthand, it's a bad situation for players and fans alike. It's not good. Fans should never be on the court. They should never rush the floor, period. It should be banned. And I know. Oh, that's not fun. Well, just because something is fun doesn't make it right or safe. I'm just telling you from firsthand experience, fans rushing the floor, it's a scary situation, it's dangerous, and it absolutely should be banned. And conferences and the security at these games should do all they can to make sure fans do not get on the floor.